Welcome to episode 104 of the Woolly Thistle podcast, coming to you from the gorgeous state of New Hampshire. Today is Friday, October 4th, and I'm your host, Corinne. The Woolly Thistle brings your favourite yarns from the UK and Europe and makes them easily accessible in North America. At thewoollythistle.com, you will find the best of British yarn, such as Blacker, US Wool, and Jameson and Smith, to name a few. You will also find yarns from Scandinavia, including Ulcentrum, Plötulopi, Rauma, and Tuku Wool. At the Woolly Thistle, we encourage woolly wanderlust, and we share information about where the wool was grown and milled. We specialise in finding yarn made at the source, whether that be on wild Scottish islands or in the Devon countryside. We find it and share it with you. With excellent customer service and beautiful yarns to peruse, you will love shopping at thewoollythistle.com. That's 2 L's in woolly. The Woolly Thistle welcomes and seeks out customers, designers, authors, and yarn makers of all backgrounds, ethnicities, cultures, locations, ages, and orientations who possess a love of wool and craft. We value your work and your contribution to making the Woolly Thistle a safe community. You are welcome here. Let the Woolly Thistle do the international shipping, so you don't have to. As many of you know and will be following along on Instagram, if you're not lucky enough to be there, this week, Shetland Wool Week is happening, and I'm more than a wee bit green with jealousy at not being there. I do hope to get there one of these days. But until then, we can enjoy Shetland Wool Week from afar, watching on Instagram, and also maybe listening to the Woolly Thistle podcast, because I thought we'd mix it up today, and I would bring you back a couple of interviews I did when I was in Shetland back in the summer of 2017. Some of you might remember that in the summer of 2017, I took my kids home to Scotland for a month, and we had an epic journey all around the Highlands and Islands. And during that time, we went to Shetland and stayed on the mainland for a couple of days. And we went to Fair Isle for a whole week, which was still the most magical time of my life, I think. So I wanted to bring you a couple of interviews because while we're focused on Shetland and all that's going on up there, I thought it'd be nice to bring these wonderful people to you again. And if you haven't heard this before, you're in for a real treat. And if you have heard it before, I'm sure you'll enjoy hearing it again, as it'll bring you right back there. The first interview I want to bring you was a chat I had with Shetland Wool Week's patron this year, Oliver Henry. So when we were on Shetland, it was pouring rain, absolutely chucking it down. It was a good Scottish weather day. And my kids and I walked from our hotel and came across, that's what I told the kids. Oh, look, there's a yarn shop. In actual fact, we'd made a beeline there, but they didn't know that. So we came across Jameson and Smith's yarn shop, and on going in there, I got to meet Karis, who I deal with for my shop all the time, and it was lovely to meet her. And I got to see Ella Gordon, who I'd met at Edinburgh Yarn Festival last year. So they were in the shop working away, and it was just really great to see them. And then they said, "Do you want to go looking back?" I was like, "Yeah." And there he was, Oliver Henry, the grader extraordinaire for the Wool Brokers. So I'm going to let you in on my chat with him. He, if you don't understand what he's saying, then just go with that. Just enjoy the sound of his voice. He's a lovely man. I had my kids with me, like I said, and he dressed up like a Viking for us. You can hear my kids bickering and me telling them off in the background. Yeah, it was a really lovely wee tour that we got of Jameson and Smith. So yeah, enjoy this.
If you watch this steps, it's pretty slippy. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'll just move this because this is me when I do the coloured wool. When I grade the coloured wool, then I pick out the finest, and then we take that down here into these bins. And what happens in here is these fleece here must go to hand spinners.
Because it's the finest.
Yeah, we have still have a lot of Shetland, but this is the superfine Shetland. This goes into our superior lace.
Oh, lovely. Oh,
The worsted yarn. And then grade 1, it's still a good wool, but it's a bit woollier. Still, this is our fine grade. You see, you're starting to see a bit of hair coming. And grade 2 is getting a bit bigger again. Grade 3, there's more guard hair. Grade 4 is a bit rougher. Then underneath here is crossbraid, Shetland cross with Cheviot. So what happens here is we try to work with the Shetland. We get that spun done in Huddersfield and some done in the worsted. I think it's done in Bradford. Caris will be able to tell you. But the crossbreeds, we grade that separate and we sell that on to the parent company because they have markets for that. So we're very fortunate. Since 2005, we've been working on getting all different products out of the Shetland. I'll show you the products in a minute, but if you see this here, this is the natural. The natural wool here. This is just the actual colour of the sheep. This is Murret, Shetland Black, Grey, Sheila. There's about 33 different colours. Markings. As I say, this was super fine.
Is the superfine limited to lamb's wool, or are these mature sheep as well?
First shear, last year's lambs, you're right, yeah. It's a year old. But superfine can also be older sheep as well.
They just have really good fleece.
Because there's still a lot of breeders in Shetland breeding this quality, thank goodness. But a lot of them have moved on to these crossbreeds.
Right. Well, that's what I noticed on Fair Isle is Suffolks and Cheviot and what was
Fair Isle
Texels.
Yeah, Fair Isle wool is mostly cross wool because it's a green isle.
Right.
There is some hull, but what we have here is the crossbreeds underneath.
Right.
And so we grade it. We also keep an awful lot back to hand sort it. Because what we have here is we have in this 5 grades, you can get the 5 types, you can get the 5 grades in one fleece. So what you have here is, see the guard hair here? If you put the guard hair through with this, you're going to get a coarse yarn. So what we have to do with this is hand sort it, physically hand sort.
And break it up and put it in pieces.
So this is where rough colour, 1794 first survey on Shetland sheep, between 60 and 80,000 sheep. Most of them were coarse wool, resembling the Spelsaw and Vilsaw of Scandinavia. And probably brought over by the Vikings in the 8th and 9th century when they settled here. There was, according to the archaeologists, there was an indigenous breed and it was similar to the Isle of Man and the Soye. I like to think that was the fine wool because 2 distinct breeds of Shetland. There's the Scandinavian type and then there's this type. The thing is they get together and they interbreed and that's how you end up with 5 grades.
Right.
So that's a real super fine black. Our problem nowadays is we've got so many yarns now that we're running out of wool. So the wool price is sky high now here. Watch your feet here. So these are the uses you probably know. This is the superfine.
Yeah.
Back in the day, the crofters.
Beautiful.
The crofter's wife, she would spin up a fine yarn and then knit this, sell it to the German and Dutch Hanseatic merchants. And so what we have here is we're range yarns. This is the latest one, the naturals for the coloured, and that's like a hat yarn. And then you have the two types of lace, the single ply, and that's the supreme lace, and the two ply lace. The heritage range was a job. This was done for the museum.
Right.
So we developed this with the parent company down in Bradford and I think West Yorkshire, Worsted Spinners. And I'm not sure about that because I don't think there's many Worsted Spinners left. So what we have is a one ply and a two ply, and that's in the natural colours. The museum in 2012 asked us to produce a yarn of Worcester, and that's the heritage
That's
range.
knitted in that.
Yeah,
It's really thick feeling.
This is the heritage.
Yeah. Yeah, I sell this and this and that and that.
The problem locally is some of the older knitters in Shetland, they don't realise that this is a Shetland because they're used to woolen spun.
Right.
When I started here in 1967, then we turned somewhat in at Hunters Abroad into a woolen spun. So worsted, as you know, is a completely different yarn. This is the chunky worsted and the iron worsted. These are the comb tops.
Heavy.
You see how smooth that is?
Yeah. Want to feel?
Yeah, see that?
That's it before it's spun.
Yeah.
And you dye in the wool then?
Yeah, it's dyed in the wool. That'll be the parent company here, the last big combing plant. Yeah, so see the beds here? The beds are full of Shetland wool. They're so soft.
These are mattresses?
Yeah, the mattresses are made for Shetland. The heritage, this stuff, is so adaptable it can weave.
Wow.
And this
Let me
is,
get a picture of that.
yeah, and this is my, see here? This is my kirtle.
Is this for Uphelia?
Uphelia. See how smooth that is?
That's beautiful. What's that made with?
And this is the heritage.
It's still the heritage?
See how it drapes?
Yeah.
Tailors.
Is that knitted?
Yeah.
That's. I
This
wonder what
on the
stitch.
Shima power machine.
Oh.
And the Jarl wanted it to imitate woven. See?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Okay, guys.
Stop back.
So, Uphelia, you know? Have you know about Uphelia?
I don't know that you do. Do you know about Uphelia?
In 2014, I was chosen to be a Viking. And this was part of my suit.
They all become
See?
Vikings in January, right?
Yeah, see? That's the axe. You ought to hold it. Yeah.
Wow. Look at the
So-
feathers on that helmet.
Yeah, so what we have is, since Curtis took over, I mean, I was thrown right in the deep end. I was told one day I would have to be the manager and I hadn't a clue.
Right.
And they said what we're going to do is turn the wool around, make it into a viable a business and pay the crofters a lot more.
Right.
And I'm pleased to say, because of all this, that we were doing that. The price is fairly high.
Yeah.
The beds, the duvets, full of Shetland wool.
Gosh, lovely.
Yeah.
I wondered why there were beds in here.
See the carpets.
Carpet. Yeah.
These are natural from the rougher colour. And this is the carpets, natural carpets.
Wow.
That's them there.
Wow.
So
It runs the whole spectrum of products.
I mean, when I came here first in 2005, in 1967, up till 2005 it was primarily wool, and we did some woolen spun,
Aye.
but it's taken off.
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Young people like Caris and Derek,
Yeah.
it's the future. 'Cause
Yeah, it's true.
I'm having my 50 year. This was Precious Wools of the World book,
Oh, wow.
in search of the world's most precious
Wow.
wools. And Shetland is in here with about 7 other wool types throughout the world.
Gosh.
And this is one of my, that's I think the merino, see?
Yeah.
And this,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
very proud of this. This
Yeah.
is, that's up in Unst.
Unstill.
See that bit of land there, that's the furthest north point of land in the United Kingdom, in Britain.
And that's it.
And on there is the lighthouse on that rock. So that's the furthest north you can go.
Wow.
So this is the Shetland, the different
yeah.
types. And this here
Oh.
Horse
was,
saddle.
yeah, well done. This was for a Shetland pony.
Oh.
And then for a bigger horse, then it's woollier.
Uh-huh.
The horse, the Shetland pony is very warm-blooded, and it doesn't need a cover.
Right.
It sweats up.
Right.
So what you have is on a big horse, this would be solid
Yeah.
wool.
Do you do any sheepskins or slippers and things?
No, we get that. There's a young couple up in the north of the island that does that. We do have a sheepskin, but this is one that she did for us.
Yeah.
And this is an old Shetland breed, Scadder.
Wow.
This is like the Scandinavian breed.
It's lovely,
And that's
isn't
the
it?
guard here.
Yeah.
But in here you can
There's
get
some crimpy bits.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can get some super fine.
Yeah.
So that's an unusual one there.
Yeah, lovely.
We still saw 1794 when he did his report, it's still running around the same sheep. It's like you and me and them, genetics.
Yeah,
Just
just keep going.
keeps going.
Well, thank you.
The bigs are the biggest users of the wool, as you can imagine.
Yeah, because they're so big.
Yeah, so that's
Jay-
just about it.
So this is the season right now for you bringing
Yeah,
all
we're-
the raw wool in?
Look, we're right in the mix now, and it's been hectic.
Wonderful. You
And
hear the rain?
yeah, we're really looking to get an extension.
Uh-huh. You need
Yes,
more
we-
space.
We need to show the beds and the carpet.
Right, of
Yeah.
course.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lovely
Nice to meet you. Good to see you guys.
Say bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that lovely conversation with Oliver, who is the wool grader at the Wool Brokers, which is Jameson and Smith. I really enjoyed my time with him and was very lucky to have met him just at his regular job. He is, of course, this year's Shetland Wool Week's patron, and congratulations to him on that. Have you signed up for our newsletter? I really hope that if you're not already signed up, you will go to the shop and sign up for the newsletter that we put out once a month from the Woolly Thistle. When you sign up, you get lots of good information in a very big once a month newsletter. And there's usually, if not always, some special newsletter subscriber discounts or things that you might not normally get access to. So I do encourage you to sign up. And if you do, thank you very much for doing that. Also, just to let you know that we are selling pre-orders for the Shetland Wool Week Annual for 2019. We also sell the annuals from 2018 and 2017. The 2019 copies are still a pre-order until Shetland Wool Week is finished and they're able to get back to their desks and organise the shipping of the Shetland Wool Week Annual out to us. But it's on its way soon, and I'm very, very lucky to be able to stock it. So do check that out at thewoollythistle.com. Now it's time to get back to Shetland. And we'll go and visit with Ann Sinclair, who is a resident on the island of Fair Isle, who I was lucky enough to have a chat with when we were there that summer of 2017. So without further ado, here's Anne. Anne is a resident of Fair Isle. She's lived there a long time. I met Anne when my kids and I were out walking, and we happened to be walking past her house, and she was there, and we got chatting. And she said that she'd seen my son playing with some wool, because all over Fair Isle you can find tufts of wool stuck in thistles and fencing and, you know, just laying in the grass. And we had been picking these tufts of wool up, and Anne must have seen George playing with some wool, and she told us that we could spin it. And I said, I know, but I forgot. I didn't forget, I just didn't think to bring my drop spin doll. She said, when we were kids we used to just use a pencil and some plasticine. And I thought, oh, okay, I think we could jimmy something up, and we did. So anyway, I'll tell you about that another time, but that's how we first met Anne. And Anne is Annie Thompson's daughter, and Annie Thompson recently passed away, and she was 94, I believe, and she was still knitting right up to the end. And I have a cap, a fisherman's cap that Annie knitted, and it's a treasured possession that my mum had got me last year. So Anne is her daughter, and she allowed me to come visit her in her kitchen, and we had a lovely chat about life on Fair Isle. Enjoy. By way of explanation, during our conversation, Anne mentions the run rig system. The run rig system was a system of land tenure practiced in Scotland, particularly in the Highlands and Islands. The land was divided into towns or townships comprising an area of cultivable in-by land and a larger area of pasture or rough grazing. The in-by was divided into strips, rigs, which were periodically reassigned among the tenants of the townships so that no individual had continuous use of the best land. From the mid-18th century, the system was steadily supplanted in Scotland as the in-by was divided into crofts under fixed tenancy. So without further ado, here is Anne.
My name's Ann Sinclair, and I belong to Fair Isle, and I find it very difficult to tell you what I do because everybody on the isle does so much. I suppose basically I'm a historian, but I do a lot with textiles. I'm not a maker or seller of textiles, but I am very interested in the history of textiles. I do knit, obviously. I come from Fair Isle, I knit. My family, well, I'm back to 1690 on my mum's side, and I'm still in Fair Isle.
Wow.
So I consider myself to be a native.
Absolutely.
Although it must be said I was born in Edinburgh. My dad at that point was a lighthouse keeper, and he was stationed in Islay. Mm-hmm. So my mum came over to stay with ex-Fair Islanders who were living in Leith, and so that's why I was born in Edinburgh. Mm-hmm. But this has always been home.
Right.
And the family, like my mum and dad and me and my brothers, came back here to stay in 1957 when I was 12.
Okay. Yeah.
But we always came for holidays before that.
Right.
So it was always home.
Right. How would you get here in those days? Well,
we used to fly from the mainland of Scotland or take a boat, and then from Shetland to Fair Isle, it was a Good Shepherd. And in those days it was a Good Shepherd 2.
Right, okay.
There wasn't any small aircraft coming and going.
Right, right. And that's a good long crossing, isn't it?
Well, it was longer then, sort of, 3 hours, 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
And sometimes longer if it was really bad weather.
Right. And was there a school here? There was a school here for a long time.
Oh yes, there's been a school here since 1732. But when I came, I was only one term at school here, and then I had to go up to Lerwick to secondary school. Mm-hmm. So again, it was coming and going on the boat. Mm-hmm. So this is why I don't feel at all guilty now when I fly out of Fair Isle.
Right, you've done your boat.
I reckon I've done my stint on that piece of water, and I owe it absolutely nothing.
Well, on your mum's side, then you go way back.
Yeah.
So what's their history?
Well, they were crofters and fishermen, mm-hmm. And knitters, mm-hmm. basically. Although my grandmother was a telegraphist.
Writing?
No, not writing, Morse code.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In the days when there wasn't phone lines to Fair Isle, but there was a telecommunications line which you could send messages by Morse code. And my grandmother was a very clever lady, very good at maths, and so the man who had the post office actually talked to the schoolmaster and said, who's leaving the school, who's really bright and could do this quickly? And he said, oh, Mary Jean Wilson. So that was it.
That was it? She did that?
Yeah, she did that until she got married.
Wow. Wow.
And apparently, I'm told she was a very clean writer. They liked her doing it. People were listening because she didn't fluff it.
Right. She was accurate.
Yeah.
And so that was your grandmother, your mother's mother? Mm-hmm. And your mother, it was Annie Thompson, and she just passed away last year, is that right?
Yes, she did. Mm-hmm. She was born in 1922, and her name obviously at that point was Annie Wilson. She was in the NAFI. She was a bright girl at school but didn't want to go on. In their family, all the boys went on to further education, and the lasses stayed home and knitted so that the boys could go. Mm-hmm. Not an unusual story, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Although I don't think my mum ever would have wanted to go, and she'd one sister, Aggie, who wouldn't have wanted to go either, but Molly, her older sister, should have gone. Mm-hmm. She was a super teacher. I remember in the days when I was at the school, and after that, sometimes the kids, because she was school cook, and if they got stuck with her maths, go and ask Auntie Molly. So she really should have been a teacher.
Yeah.
But that wasn't to be so. And she seemed to be quite content with her lot anyway. So
right.
It's okay. But Mum was in the NAFI. Mum and Molly were both in the NAFI in the wartime.
The Navy, is that?
No, the NAFI.
What's the NAFI?
No, I never can remember. It was the sort of forces canteen. They ran the I can't remember what. You have to look up Google NAFI and then you'll find out.
But was that on the island?
No, that was in Shetland. She was sent up to Shetland. She could have gone further afield, but one of her brothers was killed in the war. Right. And her mum was in a terrible state, and so both her and Molly chose to just go as far as Shetland so they could get home quickly because all the brothers were in the war. Mm-hmm. And in case another one was killed, they thought, well, we need to be near so we can get home if we can. Yeah. Basically. And it wasn't that it was any less dangerous, because in fact there was a lot of bombing went on in Shetland and in Fair Isle, and that's how my mum met my dad. Okay. Because the lighthouse, South Light here, was bombed. The light remained standing, but the living quarters were destroyed. Uh-huh. And there was a family killed, well, a woman and child, and also a soldier was killed. And because there were no living quarters, all the families were cleared out, and they put in young single men. And my dad was a young single man, and he was sent to Fair Isle, and that's how he met my mother. Mm-hmm. Aww. So I wouldn't have been here if I hadn't been for the Germans bombing the South Light, you might say. Very strange. Silver lining. Yeah. But that's how they met. My dad was born and brought up in Unst. Okay. He was northerly out of Shetland. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But he always loved Fair Isle as well, and so he always wanted to come back. So when they talked, actually, in 57, 56, 57, Shetland Isles Council, which was known at that time as Zetland County Council, actually talked about evacuating Fair Isle. We could have been another St Kilda, but one or two of the older men here said, no way are we going to move, because there's about 50 people living here, and at that point, and the average age was in the 50s, and they thought, oh, it's not a go. Although, I mean, there were 6 families at lighthouses, 2 lighthouses, 6 families, and they said, unless young families come back, and so Dad put his notice in the lighthouse, and we came back to stay. Right. That was really the sort of deciding factor then, if you like. And did the population of Fair Isle grow after the war? Yes, well, this was 57. It did. We're up to about 70, and now we're just, I'm not sure what it is. Around about 60 is what I think. It's about 60, I think. We could do a few more. I don't suppose we could sustain that many more. I always think, maybe wrongly, that about 100 would be fine. Mm-hmm. We could easily do with that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But people need to know that it's not a get away from it all place. No, it's a get stuck in place, isn't it? And if you're running away from somewhere, you've got to remember that there's nowhere else for you to run once you're here. No, and it's a tight-knit community, so it's not like you're going to be a recluse. You can be a recluse if you want, because people will respect what you... I mean, if you want to sit in your house and say, I don't want to see anybody, then we'll feel really sorry for you and we'll worry about you, but we won't hassle you. Right. Yeah. Because, but it's... I think people come with that kind of attitude. They don't usually stay long because it's difficult for them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not that anybody else makes it difficult, but
They've brought their baggage with them.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody does. You can't. No human being can leave their baggage behind. They can sort it out, but it's still there, in my opinion.
Thrust of the island, is it the sheep and crofting?
It's hard to tell actually, because we've got 3 people producing knitwear. We've got certainly people crafting. We have the British Reservatory. We have school teacher. We hope to have a nurse before too long. But we rely an awful lot. We've got the Good Shepherd's crew, which is very important, and we've got people who work for the fire crew and Coast Guard. So we've got a huge mix of things. I wouldn't sort of sit here and say one thing is more important than the other.
Right, it all works together.
But a lot of us do a lot of stuff voluntarily, like the museum, for example. Right. That's all volunteers. We don't have any money to pay anybody for that. Right. So all of us work as volunteers for the museum.
So let's talk about knitting and the history of knitting here in Fair Isle, and how did it come to be?
Well, we've no idea how it came to be. We know that they were producing knitwear here as early as, knitted fabric as early as the 1690s. We have reference to variegated colours, but we don't know if that's patterns or stripes. We have references to variegated colours, but again, you don't know whether it's the natural colours of the sheep or dyed colours. We do know by about 1760s they were producing knitwear to trade with ships. Again, they don't refer to the colours, but they do refer to the men wearing caps with red lining, which is quite interesting. So they obviously were using a dye then. They were also having to produce vadmel, which is a felted, woven fabric as part of the rent, which is a very Scandinavian type of garment, garment, but fabric.
And they were producing that to help with the rent?
It was part of the rent. They had to produce, not knitwear, but they had to produce butter and oil, fish oil and dried fish and vadmel and grain and feathers.
Yeah, because there's no money here at that time, so they would pay by bartering.
Yes, but I mean, this was the whole system, and it was called a truck system, which was made illegal in Britain in the 1830s, but which actually carried on here till 1900, here in Shetland, because it suited the lairds very well indeed. That it was a way of keeping people in debt, because the laird had the shop, and they owned the houses. Certainly in the 1870s, 80s, when the old system from the run-rig system to the present-day system went from here, then the laird supplied the slates for the roof and then he claimed the houses, but everybody did all the work and gathered all the stones. So they had you over a barrel, basically.
Who was the laird family here?
There were various. Up till the early 1600s, then it was the Bishop of Orkney who took the taxes from here. Before that, obviously, we were Scandinavian, the law was quite different. And it's interesting that in 1628 you've got the Bishop of Orkney getting most of the taxes, but there were 3 people in Fair Isle who actually owned a little bit of the island. Between the 3 of them, they owned 9 merks of land. Now, this was a land that was considered to be 92 or 95 or 96 merks, depending on what.
What's a merk?
A merk is a measure of land counting how much you can make of it.
Oh.
So it's not measured by feet or inches or whatever.
Right, it's produce.
It's to do with what it can produce. But 9 of those merks were owned by people who lived in Fair Isle, and 2 of them were women. So that's coming from a long way back. But by 1628, the Sinclairs of Quendel were the lairds here. And then in the 1750s, 60s, the Stewarts of Broch in Orkney took over because the Sinclairs were in serious debt by that time, I think. And then in the 1860s, then the Bruces of Sombra took over. So we've had a variety of lairds.
Right. So they basically abused the people living here in a way, economically.
The lairds in Scotland in general were not famous for their good hearts.
No. Was there any clearances here?
Yes. there was a very definite clearance. Well, in the 1830s, quite a few of the families were taken from here to Stronsay because they were needing fishing families in Stronsay. That's one of the Orkney Islands. And quite a lot went to Westray. Some of them were forced and some of them went quite willingly. That was a mix then. But in 1860s, the 1861 census has 380 people living here. Now, just before that, they'd planked the land. They'd gone from the rundrig system to the present-day system. And when they reallocated land, the lairds reallocated land, they left a lot of people with no acreage. So they had no option but to go.
They couldn't,
They couldn't stay here.
God.
So the end result of that was in 1862, a sloop called the No Joke came to Fair Isle and took away 132 people.
Wow.
And they'd signed up to go because they had no land. And they went from here to Orkney and then to Scotland and then across to New Brunswick.
Wow, across the ocean? Wow, en masse. That must have taken so long. And
it took quite a while. But it's interesting that one of the reasons that Bruce, who hadn't still bought the island but was wanting to buy it and was wanting to clear of as many people as he could, he made a production that, people were starving and they had nothing, and yet when they arrive in New Brunswick, the newspaper reports say about how healthy they were. And the phrase I like it they use in one of the newspapers is "with an eye to the windward." Their men had an eye to the windward. So they weren't, they weren't feeling terrible and as in they were not starving.
Right. This was not. It was created that they had to go.
Yeah.
So getting back to the knitting, is there any evidence of why they started knitting with two colours, or it was probably the different sheep colours, the fleece colours, or
we'll never know that.
No.
The fact that you're wanting to make a pattern, make a colourful pattern. I'm perfectly convinced that once human beings in general can actually hold life and limb together, then they start decorating things.
Right.
And one method of decoration is colour.
Yeah, for sure.
So it could just have been that. It's really interesting that wherever you go in the Northern Hemisphere, you get similar. You can go to the north of Canada and you'll get similar patterns in similar colours, but woven in dyed porcupine quill. And of course, Scandinavia were producing knitwear.
Right.
Very early on, we were part of them, but we don't know when knitting arrived here.
Right.
The only definite link between Fair Isle knitting and any other country in Europe is fishermen's caps that we had the project with for tall ships in 2011. You find exactly the same cap in Marken in the north of Holland. Fishermen's cap in Marken, and the ones here are the same in construction and in pattern and in dyes used.
Wow.
Exactly the same.
So was there trade between Holland and...
Well, the Hanseatic trade, which was, in the 14th, 15th, 16th century, was very strong here, and of course all the Low Countries were involved in that. Also, there was Dutch... I think that the first map that was drawn of Fair Isle was drawn by Dutchmen. But because there's a very early map, I'm trying to remember the year and I can't. 1550 was the
first map.
Was the first map. Because he has a map called Hitlanda, which is Shetland, but then it's the edge of it shows Fair Isle, and it's called Farelia. P-H-A-R-I-L-I-A at that point. But it's now reckoned to be a representation of Fair Isle. That's how early, and that was Dutch.
Right. Well, we're visiting, my family and I were staying in Springfield, which is a wee croft just down the path, and that's where your mum was born.
Yes, that's where my family lived. My great-grandfather built that house.
Really? When was it built?
I'm not sure. Probably quite early, or mid-1800s.
Yeah.
It was called the Dale, because that's the name of that land was called the Dale, but when you say that in an old Fair Isle dialect, it sounds like the deal, and them being quite strict Methodists by the time that Methodism came here, then it didn't sit very well with them, so they called it Springfield. But it was, and it was the bedroom that you're in, I suspect, the one at the west, at the east end.
Yeah.
That actually was built as a weaving shed for my great uncle Robbie, who was a weaver in the first part of the 20th century. And it was built with big windows and with an outside door, actually, because of obviously getting looms in and getting fabric out. So it was when it was built first, it would have been just a very small house indeed for a very big family.
Yeah.
Don't know where they put them all half the time.
I know. How big was the family?
Well, Mum was one of 9.
Oh gosh! Wow.
But not only was there 9 children, there was 2 great aunts and 1 great uncle, and when Mum was born, there still was the grandmother and grandfather. So I mean, it was there was a lot of people in that house.
There was.
Although the older brothers, by the time Mum came into the world, then her oldest brother Jerry was in Orkney. He was a stonemason, and he'd gone to Orkney for his apprenticeship.
Right.
So that there was.
Somebody has to move out for the new baby.
I don't think they saw it like that, but it must have been quite a tight fit. But I mean, everybody was saying, like, how many families in both here and in America lived in one room?
That's right.
They had at least 3 rooms and a lot of outside space and barns and things.
Right.
I mean, think about the towns.
I know. Yeah.
So they were really, it was just a different life, and people had different ideals and different concepts of what life ought to be. And so it wasn't like now, if you said that one family of 9 would have to live in one room, just imagine the horror.
Yeah.
We haven't said that. A lot of other countries it's the same.
I know. Yeah.
We haven't progressed really all that far in some respects.
Right.
In my opinion.
Right. So she grew up and started knitting at a very young age, probably.
Oh yeah. I think they all started knitting quite early on. I mean, I can't remember learning to knit.
You just did it.
I just did it
at some point.
There's 2 things I don't remember learning. I don't remember learning to knit, and I don't remember learning to read. I could always do both of it.
Right. And knitting was so important because it was part of the economy.
It was very much an important part because very often it put food on the table. Because in Fair Isle we were very lucky in that the knitwear that's produced here was our own. In Shetland, they were producing the most beautiful lace shawls and wonderful spinning and plain knitting. And if somebody sold a garment out with the sort of laird's and shop kind of net, then they were penalised. Whereas here, they don't seem to have had that problem. Whether the lairds thought it wasn't worth anything, maybe they didn't think they'd noticed, I have no idea. But your knitwear was your own, so you could use it to barter, and you could use it to sell, which was a huge asset for us.
And tell us about, taking the knitwear and chickens and eggs and things out on the boats to trade with ships going by. Did that happen up to quite recently, or was that a long, long time ago?
That happened until you started getting steamships. But in the days of sail, it happened all the time.
Right.
But I suspect the First World War kind of stopped it. Although I can remember, the men here going off to Russian fishing boats to trade stuff for. They always came home with cameras and I remember padded suits and check shirts and things like that. So it is quite recent.
Yeah.
And the most recent trade and barter that I know of was the tall ships, where we all got together and I made a pattern and everybody knitted caps and we traded with a wonderful Norwegian ship called the Shetland and we got hats and t-shirts and books and interesting cheeses and some rather nice alcohol.
So did you go out on the boats to meet the ship? Or?
The plan was that, but in fact the weather was really bad. So, but the captain of the ship was a wonderful fellow, and he lay off the South Harbour here, and they sent ships ashore. It was really quite rough.
Yeah, wow.
But everybody was determined, and it was a great day, in spite of the weather.
Yeah, and was that a fundraiser, or just for the experience of it?
We did it for the experience of it, and we were very lucky. It was Jameson spinning mill in Shetland. They actually gave us all the yarn and sponsored us by giving us all the yarn.
Right.
We could not have done it without them.
Right.
They were just fantastic.
Because you knit how many caps?
50.
50.
50.
Yeah.
And so we traded, we bartered a lot of them with all the skippers of the ships that come in and crews and stuff. But we'd 7 left, and they were put on Tommy, the fellow who lives in Hull. he put them on the blog, and we made £2,700 just auctioning them.
What, 7?
7 caps.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And then somebody suggested the pattern that I'd made, because I did sort of write down a pattern, because I knew that people who were coming to the class would be people who A, were very good knitters, or B, never knitted at all,
right.
and everything in between.
Right.
So I made a very general knitting pattern.
Right.
And I started printing it out, for the people who said, oh, we did like it, and we started selling it in aid of the museum refurbishment. And in the end, then we've made a tremendous amount of money, because the nurse who was here at the time, Elna, she put it online, and we've got it as a PDF, that's it. It's not something I've ever done. I don't have a fast enough broadband for a start. But we have made so much money that we have got 6 windows for the museum that will be going at the end of this month, the beginning of next month.
That's fantastic.
And anybody who's listening here who bought our pattern, thank you very much.
New windows, that's a big deal.
Yes, it's a huge deal. I will put photos on the Facebook page when they're in.
So what's the Facebook page called, in case people want to check it out?
It's called, I think, Fair Isle Fisherman's Cat page.
Okay. Thanks very much, Anne, for taking the time to talk to us. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Ann Sinclair of Fair Isle. It was lovely to meet her and sit in her kitchen and blether with her and let her tell us about life on the island. So I hope you've enjoyed this rerun episode. I thought it was really fun to do it. It's been fun for me to go back down memory lane. Even though it wasn't that long ago, it can sometimes feel a lifetime ago when life gets so busy. So I do hope you've enjoyed it. And until we speak again, if you go out, take your knitting, take care, bye-bye. That's the end of another episode, but it doesn't have to be over. Thank you for listening to the Woolly Thistle podcast, brought to you by the Woolly Thistle online shop. You can find items discussed in this episode at thewoollythistle.com. That's 2 L's in woolly. You can find our Ravelry group by searching for The Woolly Thistle. Find our podcast on iTunes or at thewoollythistle.com. You can speak to Corinne at hello@thewoollythistle.com. Follow The Woolly Thistle on Instagram at The Woolly Thistle, and join our newsletter for subscriber specials and all the news right on thewoollythistle.com.